What's up, everybody? Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat on Cheesehead TV. Wherever you are in the world, that's where we want to be. We're dedicated to you, Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. And hello to everybody jumping in the chat. Good to see you all, and good to see you on all the social media channels. It's been a while. Sorry I was away yesterday, but I'm back today to talk some Packers with y'all. Not a whole lot of headlines to talk about, but as is our wont, we like to mix it up with you guys every chance we get. Travis starts us off with a pertinent question. Any news we need to know about? Not at the moment, Travis. Nothing breaking anyway. Hello, Aaron. Hope you all and the other Packers fans are doing great. Having a wonderful day. Aiden, thank you for that. Still got Bulaga. Yes, that's, I guess, the bit of news, although I don't think that's really news, dropped on the Athletics podcast with Michael Cohen this morning. Bulaga telling Michael that he and his representatives have not heard from the Packers in regards to a possible pay cut or any other kind of probing as far as his status with the team. Last year, it was reported by Bob McGinn that he had been asked to take a pay cut, a request that he refused. But so far, nothing. And Bulaga saying he's feeling great and expecting to suit him up and line up week one when the Packers take the field. So I know seems every offseason there seems to be some kind of questioning and or pontification about whether the Packers try to make a cut there and try and go a little cheaper along the offensive line, get rid of his salary cap bump. But it doesn't sound like it's going to happen this year. So Bulaga will be allowed to play out the final year of his contract. And, hey, I think for the Packers, that's a good thing. The Packers are a much better team when he's on the field. Timmy with the all caps. Aaron, good to see you. Good to see you, Timmy, in the all caps. Any news on Mo Wilkerson? Nothing that I've heard or read, but I'm not surprised. You have to think, considering the nature of his injury, the brutal nature of it, probably still on the outside of the time when he would be able to pass a physical. So I think there's a good chance they bring him back still. There's no rush. I don't think there's going to be a clamoring for his services, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Can Boyle be the backup next year? Whew. That's a bit of a leap for me. I know my good buddy Andy Herman had him on his podcast a little while ago. I know he showed some nice things in preseason. He also showed some troubling things. But you look at Tim Boyle's game and, he's a statuesque guy. He's not a guy who's going to run around and make things happen outside the pocket, which is fine. They're bringing in an entirely new offense, one that traditionally has been predicated on some outside zone boot action. I'm not so sure how Boyle fits into that, but as a guy who can rise and fire and throw it down the field, yeah, he's done some nice things. He's also shown a troubling desire to push the ball downfield no matter what, which sometimes is fun to watch and sometimes results in interceptions. I think he's very raw still. I would be very surprised if they decided to go with him at number 2 heading into 2019. But you never know. Maybe he comes in to camp, maybe he makes a big jump, and they feel comfortable enough to make that move. Because goodness knows, if they continue to see more of the same from Deshaun Kaiser, they got to do something. Be honest, who was worse, Tony Mandrich or Marshall Newhouse? I'll actually say Mandrich until later on in Mandrich's career after he'd left Green Bay. But in Green Bay, he was pretty bad. Is it just me, or is Preston Smith's tape a lot better / consistent than Zadarius Smith? I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean, just because, yes, Preston had a lot more opportunities. Zadarius was very much more part of a rotation, and he was used in a lot of different ways. So it's hard for me to sit there and compare as an apples-to-apples comparison, simply because it's not really a fair / straight-line comparison. EQ in the slot. That's a possibility. Nags was listening to the Locked On Packers, and Peter was saying Silverstein reported the wrong numbers because Green Bay uses false numbers as a bargaining tactic. Has anyone ever seen that meme with the guy from the show where he's like doing all the things and then like he comes around and he's like this and it's like conspiracy theory time? That's a pretty big leap for me, but hey, I guess it's a possibility. You going to miss Cobb? I mean, I'm happy for Randall. I'm glad he's got a gig and he's going to be playing down in Dallas. I mean, obviously, I hate the Cowboys, but I'm happy for Randall. Am I going to miss him? I don't know. Yeah, I've said numerous times in the last kind of couple weeks on social media and also here in the chat, it was time. It was time for the Packers to move on. It's very rare they give guys a third contract, and I think it's best for all parties involved, especially after they drafted 3 guys last year and they had Kumaro come on in preseason. I think the writing was on the wall that it's time to get younger and develop some other talents. So, I mean, I'll miss him in the sense that I thought he was a good guy, but yeah, it was time. It was time for him to move out past Green Bay. Derek Sherrod was. What do you see the Packers trading if they want to trade into the top 5 picks in the draft? Whew, Matt. I would check out Michael Cohen's piece on that very subject over at The Athletic from a couple days ago. I think they could trade both of their first-round picks and jump up into the top 5. I don't see them doing that. That would be a hyper-aggressive trade for Brian Gutekunst, and it would require him absolutely falling in love with whoever they'd be up there targeting. I'd be shocked if they did something like that. Clay really worth the money the Rams gave him? I'll tell you what, who am I to say? I don't know. You're worth what you can get on the open market, right? And who knows how I haven't looked at the actual breakdown of the contract. I don't even know if those numbers are out yet. But I will say this. It kind of reminds me, Clay going to another team and Packers fans, kicking him out the door and saying good riddance or whatever, kind of reminds me of when Julius Peppers left the Bears and he signed with Green Bay. And all the Bears fans were, to be fair, I thought at the time, kind of rightfully so, saying, he's really winding down, didn't look like he has much left in the tank, really disappointing final season in Chicago. And then obviously he comes to Green Bay and helps get them within a whisker of the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying all of that is going to happen with Clay, and I'm not saying he's going to have even, close to the impact that Peppers had on the Green Bay defense. But I will say, there's a possibility that Clay goes out to LA and starts lighting it up in a different system with a different cast around him. Offenses having to focus on a number of different problems, including Aaron Donald in the middle. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Clay kind of tears it up this year. And I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion by any means, but don't be surprised if Clay is suddenly, productive out there for Wade Phillips. Let's head over to Twitter, see what's going on here in the old tweet machine. Jazzy Diva, what a name. Starting us off with, who will replace Cobb as a slot receiver? I think at least initially, to begin with, it'll most likely be a kind of a combination of guys. We've seen throughout the years that the Packers have traditionally wanted their guys to play all their positions. Now, obviously, new coaching staff, new offense. You have to think some of the philosophy will stay intact when it comes to personnel and finding receivers in the draft. But as far as the guys who are on hand, Adams has shown he can do it. MVS did it a bunch last year. I think EQ has shown he can do it. And Kumaro did some really nice work in the slot last year. So I think there's a good chance that, could they target somebody in the draft? I think if the value is there, you can't put it past them. If somebody falls late second, early third that they thought would go late first, early second, absolutely. Did they take a shot there? Who that might be, I don't know. But that could happen. Now, more likely, in my mind, is that they like what they have on hand and they go into the off-season workouts and then training camp and kind of mix and match guys and see who produces, who has the best chemistry with Rodgers, who appears to take to it the best. Because there's going to be a ton of snaps and there's going to be a ton of reps throughout the offseason. And these guys are going to have to kind of rise to the occasion. It's funny because I think the one guy who I haven't mentioned here, Geronimo Allison, has taken snaps in the slot, but he's the one guy I don't really see in that mix. He is, for me, predominantly a perimeter receiver. Now watch, he'll be the slot guy and get like 1,300 yards on the year and 10 touchdowns. But for me, he's a perimeter guy. He's the one who traditionally will line up opposite Devontae Adams on the outside. And all those other guys will probably mix in, including Adams, into the slot. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. A lot of ball game left there. Mark, with a lot of words here. Would you agree, one, our offense offensive issues were more coaching issues, whereas our defense just lacked talent? And 2, how did the Packers ever let our defensive depth and talent get so bad? It seems we need so much, even after the recent 4 signings. A lot to go through there, Mark. Okay, first, offensive issues, more coaching issues, whereas our defense just lacked talent. For the most part, your overall point I would agree with. I do think there are a number of issues on the offensive side of the ball that played into the problems they've had, especially recently. I think the injuries at wide receiver last year are what really killed them. Offensive line obviously didn't help, especially in some of the boot action stuff and the play action stuff that they could never really develop because they couldn't hold up. So I think offensive line had a big part to play. That's not coaching. In fact, I thought Mike was smart to get away from all that boot action and the play action stuff because he knew he couldn't hold up. And then the injuries to the wide receivers, once you had both Randall, Cobb, and Geronimo Allison go down for extended periods of time, well, you just took away 2 of the guys that Rodgers trusted completely. And all that's left is Adams. So it's really no surprise that Adams had such a big year because, Rodgers doesn't trust those other guys. To me, yes. Was it coaching predominantly, system, etc.? Yeah, I think that's fair. But let's not act like there weren't a ton of other issues along the way as well. Now, as for your second point, how did the Packers let the defensive depth on the talent get so bad? I mean, pretty much this you have to lay on Ted Thompson. Obviously, some of this is Russ Ball if Rob Demovsky's reporting is to be believed in regards to allowing Julius Peppers to walk and Micah Hyde to walk. Those were both calls made by Russ Ball. So if you've got guys walking out the door who clearly are still very talented, you're not replenishing through free agency, and you're missing on the draft for a number of years in a row, yeah, you're going to have some issues when it comes to depth. And you are right. They still need help. The safety position is still threadbare, despite all the signings they just made in free agency. But those free agent signings do not, don't get it twisted. Those signings were made, and you notice 3 out of the 4 were on the defensive side of the ball because they recognize what Patton was handed last year was subpar when you're talking about trying to stock the talent. I expect we'll probably see a predominantly, not completely, but predominantly defensive-minded draft yet again because, they need a lot of help on that side of the ball, no question. Do you think the Packers will re-sign Ibrahim Campbell? I thought he made a few really nice plays in limited time last season. David, I couldn't agree more. I think he was placed on injured reserve that first week of December, so there's a good chance he's still recovering. I can't remember even what his specific injury was, but I have to think he's probably still dealing with some kind of lingering effects from the injury. Much like Mo Wilkerson, I think once he's able to pass a physical, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers made a call and gave, and tried to bring him back into the fold. Because as you say, I thought he was pretty damn impressive for the very limited time he was on the field for the Packers last year. It's clearly the most sure tackler on the squad late last year. I don't think there's any question there. Let's head back over to the live chat. Someone's saying, are you familiar with the Locked On Packers podcast? I am familiar, though I am not a listener. I got to admit, there are a million podcasts in the world, and I only have so much time. I don't listen to it, but I am very aware of it. Hawkinson can block, looks like a lot like Gronk-style player. I love him. William, I love him too. It's all a question of value and where you pull the trigger on him. If he's there at 30, I think he's a no-brainer. At 12, feels a little rich, but you never know. With Clay gone, who has the best hair on the team? 69 or Touchdown Jesus? I don't think there's any question. It's got to be Bakhtiari, right? I mean, I'm all for Kumaro and the promise and the Touchdown Jesus, but Bakhtiari, clearly. I mean, we answer the tough questions here on Packers Daily. Geronimo is the new Jordy. Jordy, don't at me. Nick, I would never at you. But that feels a little high ceiling-wise, but I wouldn't turn it down if it's on offer. Let's see. Is Aaron Rodgers still the best in the league? No. Why Oliver as opposed to an actual linebacker? I don't know if that's in response to me, because I haven't talked about Oliver in this chat yet, but it could possibly be why in response to people in the chat or something I put up on Twitter a couple days ago. To me, Ed Oliver is a true no-brainer at 12. I think he, but to me, in response directly to your question, over any linebacker, I mean, look, is he, I know some people see the undersized guy and they kind of instantly look at Aaron Donald comparisons, and I think that's a little too much. But he could be John Randall, as my buddy Doug Farrar said the other day. And look, if you're going to plug in John Randall for the next 10 years, give me some of that. Making quarterbacks uncomfortable is the name of the game on defense, especially in this day and age where the ball is out of their hands so quickly. Their wide receivers aren't allowed to be touched down the field. You guys all know the liberalized passing rules, which have become even more liberal in recent years. To me, much more valuable to have instant, quick penetration from the interior in the quarterback's lap like that. I'd much rather have that than even a linebacker, yes, no, whether it's Bush, whether it's White, whoever you get, who can go sideline to sideline, 3-down backer. I'm all for it. I love it. If that's the choice, I won't be upset. But to me, this is my personal opinion, my personal preference, give me the guy who can give you interior pressure, and give me the guy also who can play up and down the line and up and down your front. Hell, you could line him up outside if you want. I'm not saying that's where you're going to play predominantly, but Oliver can do anything you want him to do up and down the line. He becomes so valuable. And throughout the last kind of decade, we've seen this happen where big guys, for whatever reason, get devalued, whether it was Haloti Ngata, whether it was Aaron Donald. These big guys drop down boards, they drop out of the top 10, and they get swooped, some team, whether or Star, Tulale, like they get picked up, and maybe they're not all stars, but they're all really effective interior defenders. And that is where the game is won. That is where the game is controlled. That's what I want. That's just me. Rodgers will rise like a phoenix and be untouchable in 2019. I'm talking intergalactic space rocket here. I mean, I love that. I love it. I'll give me some of that. But I would only caution that, remember last summer? Remember last offseason? He was coming off the broken collarbone and everyone was talking about a Rodgers revenge tour. And then he's injured in the first half of the first game, and then the rest of the season he's playing below his regular standard during his Rodgers revenge tour. I mean, yeah, I'm for it, man. I'm all for Rodgers getting back to being a Jedi-like assassin. All right, I'm here for it. But man, if we don't fumble punts this season, can we consider the new special teams coach a success? Sure. Why not? Let's put the bar there. Ron Zook left it low. So I think that's a good place to start. Let's see. Who's better than Rodgers? Jacob, right now? Are you kidding me? Have you watched the NFL? Do you know? Have you seen Tom Brady? Oh, God. We're going to have this discussion? Really? 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 Did you watch the games last year? I love Aaron Rodgers. I love him. But the man set records for throwing the ball away, missed open receivers, refused to throw checkdowns. He's not the best right now. Can he be? Absolutely. Is he, as of right now, sitting here at this moment? Hell no. Stop. Take the blinders off. Take off your green and gold glasses. Deal with reality. Clark and Ed Oliver, full potential equals new rule, can't scare QBs with good defensive tackles. I'm for that. Making the special teams worse could be a real super challenge for any coordinator. That's a fair point. Time to draft a kicker this year. Crosby needs competition. I don't know if they draft one, but I think there's a possibility. I don't know how good it is, but a possibility they'd bring one in for camp. No doubt. And the company line will most likely be competition's good for everybody, trying to keep Mason's leg, not wear him out, etc. But yeah, I think there's a good chance they bring in at least a little competition this year. Given the kind of intermittent struggles he had last season, I think it's silly not to. Is Simmons worth the number 30 pick despite his injury? Whew. Yeah, Philip, I think so. Although I've been saying since the day that injury happened, I think there's a good chance the Raiders use one of their 3 first-rounders on him. But we'll see. Do you see us taking 2 tight ends in the draft, considering Graham and Lewis might not be on the roster? I mean, I don't think they're going to go into the draft saying we have to take 2 tight ends. If there are 2 tight ends of value when they're on the clock, yeah, it's a possibility. But I don't think it's going to be a hard rule. Like we're going into this draft, we've got to draft 2 tight ends. I don't think that's a plan going in. And look, could there be fallout from the draft across the roster? Absolutely. I mean, maybe they do end up getting somebody and they decide, we don't need whoever. Maybe hopefully it's not Big Bob Tonyan, but yeah, it's a possibility. I think Hawkinson is too slow to get open versus NFL linebackers. Well, that's all right. They said the same thing about Gronk. That's why he didn't go in the first round. And most likely he's not going to have to get too crazy as far as using his speed. I mean, Jason Witten was never a burner, and he got open all the time. And now, who knows? He might still get open. We'll see. He's back. Do you see us taking a running back in this draft? I do, on day 3, most likely. I don't think they'll use a premium pick on one. You never know, though, if there's some value there. We miss out on Beasley. Tony, they certainly made a call, as Ryan Wood reported for PackersNews.com. I was all for bringing in Beasley, but looking at the money he got from Buffalo, there was no way the Packers were going to be in on that. And I'm not surprised by that, and I'm not shaken up about it. I think they can, like we just discussed a little while ago, I think they have talent on hand to handle the slot role, but I think Beasley would have been a nice addition, but they were never going to go where Buffalo went money-wise. Any worries about Pettine as defensive coordinator? Granted, injuries came into play, but the defense seemed awfully Jekyll and Hyde last season. Frank, no, not for me. Like I said a little earlier, I thought he was handed a really, really tough hand cards-wise, in both injury and talent. Because first, he had a team that wasn't really talented, and then it got decimated by injury. You put those 2 things together, it's a miracle they were able to do some of the stuff they were able to do last year. You give them a little more talent, and I think you're going to like what you see. I'm a big Mike Pettine fan, to be fair. As everybody who follows me knows, the day they made that hire, I was very happy. I've really liked him all the way back to his time here in New York. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think he's one of the better coordinators and defensive play callers in the league. What's planned for draft day on Cheesehead TV? Nick, I'm glad you asked. I'm actually going to put up a post about it tonight, but I'll give you guys a little something because I did tweet about it this morning. The first night of the draft on Thursday night, it'll be Corey and I here in the studio with a few friends. I'm not at liberty to say who yet, but we're waiting to get confirmation on a number of people. But myself, some friends, and Corey are going to hang out, drink some beer, and watch the draft. And we hope you all will join us. Now, we'll be talking about the Packers. We'll be talking about the draft itself. We'll be commenting on everything, not just the Packers picks. And it's going to be a good time, a bit of a party, a bit of a hang. So I hope you guys can, use this as your second screen experience, because obviously we don't plan to take the place of draft coverage. We're here to augment it for you guys. We'll be watching the NFL Network feed because I love Daniel Jeremiah and it's his time to shine. And then the second night, Cheesehead TV will host our kind of our Draft Nick Lollapalooza. Andy Herman last year on the Cheesehead TV channel hosted a Google Hangout, Hangouts on Air, with a bunch of people from around the Packers blogosphere. And since that second night really gets into the guts of the draft, you get kind of a lot of the big names, headliners are off the board. Now it gets down more to guys that, you need a little bit more of a draft nerd to talk about them. We'll have a whole heap and help of draft nerd for you on Friday night on the Cheesehead TV YouTube and Facebook channels. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be at Kettle of Fish here in Manhattan. In my mind, the greatest Packers bar outside of the state of Wisconsin. And I invite anybody in the New York area, or hell, if you're outside the area and just want to visit, I'll be hanging out on Saturday afternoon, watching the draft, drinking beer, and you're more than welcome to stop by. I'll go live whenever the Packers make a pick and, give my thoughts on it. But for the most part, it'll just be, drinking beer, watching the draft, talking football at a nice bar in the village. How's that? Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. I'm going to have to jump, but like I said, we're going to have tons of great stuff for you during the draft. Make sure you got your Cheesehead TV draft guide. You can pre-order it at cheeseheadtv.com right now. Make sure you support our Patreon page. It's $5 a month to support everything we do, including exclusive access to my podcast, Nagler's Never Right, which has a new episode dropping tonight, so make sure you check that out. And like us, share us, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube page, share us on Facebook, tell your friends. We're devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. It's why we're here. It's what we do. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night.